Hey Piedmontsters, and welcome to Piedmonsters, the Piedmont Pilot Podcast, brought to you by your Piedmont MEC. I'm your host, Megan Johnson, First Officer and Vice Chair of the Communications Committee. We are going to be doing things a little differently this month. As I mentioned in our last episode, your MEC and LEC representatives traveled to Chicago in October for an MEC meeting as well as ALPA's biannual Board of Directors meetings. In addition to long-term strategic planning for ALPA-represented pilots, I had the chance to sit down with a few different groups for shorter interviews. So, over the next few weeks, we'll be releasing 3 shorter episodes that were all recorded in person in Chicago during those meetings. Today's interview features key members of our ALPA support staff, Nina Ng, Dena Jackson, and Vicki Noble, who all work directly with our MEC and committees to keep things running smoothly. As always, before we dive in, a few quick updates. Holiday parties. This year, your MEC will be hosting 2 holiday parties, and pilots along with their families or a guest are invited to attend. These will be held at Dave & Buster's. The first in Philadelphia on Monday, December 16th, and the second in Charlotte on Tuesday, December 17th. Use the RSVP form you received via email to register for you and your family. As a reminder, families of pilots who will be out flying during the holiday party are still encouraged to attend. Just fill out an RSVP, and if the pilot will not be attending, subtract 1 person from the guest count. The RSVP form is available until midnight, Sunday, December 8th. For more information about the holiday parties as well as that RSVP form, refer to the MEC update email that was sent on November 7th. Quarterly CBTs. Reminder that the following quarterly training modules are due on December 19th. Fatigue Education Awareness Training, Hazmat Dangerous Goods, and Ice and Rain Protection Systems. The due date for Winter Ops was November 26th, so if you have not completed that module, please do so immediately. That takes care of our updates this week. Like I said, we're going to be releasing 3 episodes in the month of December, so each week's updates will be a little bit shorter and quicker to get through. But as always, thank you for listening to Piedmonsters. We hope you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a 5-star review. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions via email at pdtpodcast@alpa.org. And stay tuned for more Board of Directors special episodes coming your way this month. And now, our conversation with Nina, Dena, and Vicki, recorded in person in Chicago during ALPA's Board of Directors meetings. Hello and welcome to Piedmonsters. Today we are in Chicago at the 50th Board of Directors meeting for ALPA International. This is an event that takes place every 2 years and lasts a little over a week, actually, where representatives from ALPA as well as representatives from each of the individual airlines represented by ALPA all congregate to meet together, share best practices, vote on important initiatives, and kind of help guide the direction of ALPA and ALPA Airlines for the next 2 years until the next BOD meeting. So I am fortunate today to be joined by some of our ALPA support staff who works closely with the Piedmont MEC and provides amazing work and support for us in our initiatives. And I am proud to introduce them all to you today. We have Nina Ng, Dena Jackson, and Vicki Noble are here with us today. And ladies, if you could quickly introduce yourselves and your current role with ALPA and a little bit of your background.
All right, I'm Dena Jackson, currently working with the Piedmont MEC in a representation role. I've been with ALPA for 36 years. And initially worked with Northwest on the grievance side. And then when Compass came into being, I worked with them from the beginning until their end in 2020. And that's when I started working with Piedmont, was right as at the end of 2019.
Excellent.
My name is Nina Ng. I am the communications specialist for Piedmont. I have been with ALPA for 2 years now, and I have been with Piedmont for 2 years. Let's see, before I came to ALPA, I was working in television news as both a reporter and producer. So that's kind of my background, and I thoroughly enjoy working with all of the Piedmont pilots very much.
Yes. And for our listeners, Nina is the one, because obviously this is a communications committee role. Nina is the one that kind of sits with us. We have a weekly call. We go through the Gazette. She really cleans up and organizes our Gazette communications for us. So Davis Bunting, who's our communications chair, takes the lead on that. Sometimes I fill in where it's needed. Kim Gott usually joins those calls. We kind of put together the bones and the outline. And then Nina's the one that makes it coherent and respectable to go out to all of our pilots so that you guys are up to date on all of our Piedmont goings on. So she spends a lot of time with us and we are lucky to have her. And lastly, Vicki.
My name is Victoria Noble and I've been with ALPA for 18 years. I started off with Continental and ExpressJet, and then once ExpressJet disappeared during COVID, I went over to Air Transat out of Montreal and WestJet Airlines out of Calgary. And then I left Air Transat and now I picked up Piedmont, and I've been with Piedmont since May of this year.
Excellent. And so within each of your individual roles, as we kind of talked about, who are the primary contacts within Piedmont that you work with, and what are the day-to-day responsibilities that go along with that?
Work mainly with the MEC chair, Kim Gott. We talk at least 3 times a day sometimes. So I work with every aspect of Piedmont. I also work closely with the negotiating committee and the grievance committee. Right now, more so negotiations, since we're working on the PBS LOAs. Yeah, Kim bounces a lot of things off of me. We just, make a plan and, move things from there.
Yes. So Dena is the one that helps with all of the language in our LOAs and any communications that go out to make sure that everything that we share is as accurate as possible and that our pilots are getting the correct information in a clear and concise way. And Nina?
So I work primarily with the communications chair, who is Davis Bunting, and we meet along with Kim on a weekly basis to go over we meet on a weekly basis. Every other week, we discuss the Gazette and the items that we'd like to communicate to the pilots in the Gazette. Outside of the Gazette, we also work on any other communications that the pilots need to know about. And then, of course, you're in on most of those meetings, and we'll discuss ideas for the podcast and occasionally talking about how other avenues that we would like to take to help communicate best with the pilots and what those channels could possibly be.
Yeah, sometimes we talk about pub events, or when we do pilots, if you're not signed up for Textcaster updates, we do have a text message service where we send out important information that way as well. So we kind of talk through all of that. And then Vicki.
Administrative specialist. I basically deal with Kim, Rick, and Jenny. I help plan their meetings and I set up their travel, their hotel rooms, and basically anything they throw at me, whether they want catering at an event or anything like that, they just come to me. So those are the 3 people I mainly deal with. I don't really deal with the committees directly. I really get my direction for the committees through our chair or secretary treasurer or executive admin.
Yes. And then when it comes time for us to actually have MEC meetings, Vicki is the one who tries to keep us on track. We can be a slightly rambunctious group, and she likes to remind us that there are rules for how meetings are held and how motions are put forward and approved or tabled. And sometimes we try hard to comply with those.
She herds the cats.
You kind of sound like I'm a stickler, but
no, we need someone. First of all, we are a group that needs sticklers because we are a lot of people with big ideas. And so to that note, the next question I have here is, what are the challenges in each of your roles? And as they have previously shared, sometimes, most of the time, it's us. We the pilots are the challenge. But if there's anything else that you guys face that you think we could be helping with or doing better, or that you'd like to see from your Piedmont MEC, now is the time for the airing of the grievances.
Well, it's not Festivus, so we don't do that yet. So I'll start. I feel like the MEC is, as far as the officers go, they really do try to keep us abreast of what's going on. I think the biggest issue they kind of have sometimes, on my standpoint, as somebody that plans meetings and everything, is not being able to get people off of flight pay laws. So we plan events, we have people that we plan on having at these events, and the company denies their flight pay laws, so they're unable to attend these events. So where we were going to have 12 people, we now have 3 people that are attending a pub event. So I think that is a challenge that they do have. But I mean, I feel like Kim and Ryan and Jenny and Rick they try to stay on top of everything. And considering I think Kim's the only one that is on flight pay loss. The rest of them, this is strictly volunteer. So they are doing this in between trips and while sitting in hotel rooms or the crew rooms. So they do a good job for constantly being in an aircraft.
Yeah, that is a team that definitely works very hard. And I know they're trying to address the flight pay loss situation. We keep hearing that staffing is improving. And so maybe especially our captains will have a better chance moving forward. So we are optimistic.
I think turnover is a huge challenge that we face. So there's constant training. I mean, since I've been with Piedmont, I'm on my 4th MEC chair in 4 years. So, and the committees turn over quite frequently. I try to, ALPA National puts on training for the committee people, but because of our large turnover, we do a lot of it in-house because of the timing. So I do spend a lot of time helping to train the committee volunteers. Another challenge is, as has been mentioned, I do the reviews of comms and other things. And sometimes I have to cut things that, people don't really want to cut. And, again, I'm just trying to save us from ourselves sometimes. And it can be disheartening to people who spend a lot of time working on something and to have it cut up.
It's a hazard of the job, unfortunately. And I think one of the things that we as pilots need to keep in mind is that as union employees and as pilots who have the privilege of working with ALPA is here to protect us as pilots, both our jobs and, in day-to-day understanding of interactions with the company. And so to your point, it is really important that the information that is being shared is accurate and helpful in a way to keep pilots from doing things that could get them in further trouble. And because that's why we're here.
Right. And keeping in mind the strategic plan, does this help our overall goal? So there's all kinds of considerations to keep in mind.
Yeah, there's a lot more bigger picture stuff that you have that our pilots don't necessarily have. And so sometimes you have to accept that you don't see the bigger picture, and that's okay. That's what other people are here for.
No, I feel like since I started at Piedmont 2 years ago, at that point, we didn't really have a strong communications committee. And since then, it has really turned around. Yeah. And I feel like in a short amount of time, and I am going to credit Davis Bunting 100% for this. He has really pushed to increase what the committee is doing and figuring out ways to communicate with the pilots at where the pilots are.
Agreed.
And I think pushing for a podcast, pushing for more pub events, reaching out to the pilots and really wanting to figure out, so that we can best communicate with them about what is your union doing?
Yeah.
And getting, a face to, we send out communications every other week, but who is that coming from?
Right.
At the bottom of the email, you'll see everyone's names, but who are these people? Right. So, I credit Davis for really wanting to push that, really wanting to make sure that the average line pilot knows exactly who this union is and what it's doing for them.
Yeah, he runs a pretty tight ship from the communication side of things. But I will say that's something that I've also seen Kim really put a lot of her support into. And obviously she's incredibly busy, but she's always on our communications calls. And she's also, to Dena's point, with turnover within the union committees, she's really emphasized getting those positions filled, getting people trained, searching out people who are good at those roles and kind of recruiting them. So yes, those definitely are some of the challenges. And then to that note, are there any misconceptions that you have or that you think our pilots have about ALPA and the work that you guys do as an organization and the way that you support us?
You're all looking at me.
You've been here the longest.
I know. I'm trying to think of I'm going to say when they first come on property, they have a weird mindset. And the pilots that don't normally volunteer or anything like that, when they talk to you on the phone or wherever you are, they if they're angry about something and it's just kind of like, what did my union do for me? What did I do? I'm like, well, did you go through the process or were you raging at the stars and just didn't know what was going on? You follow the process, we will do everything that we can to help you. I think with representation, I do feel like you are much more front and center. They know what you do because you're repping them in a hearing, you're sitting there with their grievances, you are getting their job back, and you're getting rid of those written warnings. But, with people like Nina or myself, we're much more behind the scenes, where sometimes we can just look like a dollar on a budget, and they, what's that for? So it's like you have to kind of explain what it is. But I really think that they think it's either like the staff is running it and we're like these weird puppet masters, and we're not. And we have next to no opinion on what you're doing. We are strictly there to help you accomplish your goals. So yeah, I do think that is like an issue. And that's on many properties where they think somehow staff just has this ulterior motive. And I'm like, you think we pay attention that much to what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, and there's so many
my own contract. Right? Like, I know yours.
There's so many things going on too that we wouldn't even have time to master. But Vicki's absolutely right. I mean, this is something that, ideas are thrown out, and this is, what the MEC is for, right? Yeah. They're the decision-making group, not even Kim. Kim as the chair has no decision-making power other than how we're going to implement what the MEC decides to do. So they make a plan, and we may advise a certain course of action. They don't have to listen to that.
Unless she goes, that's illegal, and you cannot do that.
The language in the contract is...
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking the direction that the MEC gives us, making sure that we do carry things out in a legal and in a manner that is going to help the group as a whole in the long run. Sometimes things aren't absolutely apparent to begin with, and it's like it's part of a bigger picture, like you were talking about earlier, and it doesn't look like we're doing anything, but there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes that people aren't even aware of. And it's great that there's communication, because that's one of the first things I think that happens is people don't hear what's going on, and then they think nothing is happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
and you guys are very good about sending out your gazettes and stuff like that. So this way, I mean, you're very regular on that. And some MECs are not. And that's when you you'll have that buildup of like, well, what's going on? Like, why don't I know what's happening? And there's no communication, but you guys are really good about distributing those. And it is one of those things where it's kind of hard to really get them to understand, like, we never want you to look bad. We want what's best for the pilots, and we want our MECs to succeed in the goals that they have. And we're going to do what we have to do it within the confines of the Constitution and bylaws, the admin manual, and the Piedmont policy manual. And to Dena, the railway labor and all these other things that she has to abide by to make sure, like, nope, we're where we're supposed to be. So there's many governing documents that we double check to make sure you're able to do it. We are not saying no, but we're saying this tells you how and when and if you can. Like, it's not us saying it. It's this big book in front of you that's saying it.
Right. And that's kind of where we as a pilot group rely on our ALPA support staff, because these are people who, number one, are specialists in their field, but also work with a lot of different airlines as well and have a lot of industry knowledge that they bring to us that we would not otherwise have. But also, to the point of high turnover, the governing documents don't change. Even when an MEC chair or LEC reps change, the governing documents don't change. So to have the continuity of our ALPA reps be able to step in and say, you might be new to this role, but the rules that govern how the role has to operate have not changed. And to have that knowledge base is really critical, especially in a situation where we've had high turnover.
Yeah, they do change, but
I mean,
the basic structure is there.
It's the fine tuning of it that may change. Like your policy manual, there's certain things that are gonna stay the same. Your frequency of meetings, that may be a resolution that is passed and changed, and then it's distributed again. But that's the thing, it's distributed again, and that's one of the things with staff is you guys can be in office today and just flow to American or Delta or something, and you're gone. And we retain the knowledge of what you just did. So when the next person takes that position, we're the ones that have the documents and we're the ones that remember what happened. So that's kind of why staff is here, especially with the fee for departure carriers, because you guys have such high turnover that it's one of those things. Yeah, you need somebody there that
It would
has
be reinventing the wheel
over
every
and over and
year,
over and over.
2 years.
And all of us do support other carriers and, have supported many other carriers over the years. So when you say something, we're like, we know this carrier did this 2 years ago, and here's what we know about it. It's not you just starting from ground zero. We can give you a little bit of foundation that's like, well, it's not exactly what you need, but here's something similar to what you were looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our support staff worked hard for us, and we are very, very grateful for them. Which brings me to my last official question of the interview. What are our top priorities for working with Piedmont in 2025?
That all depends on the MEC, as I said.
Right.
Yeah. They make the rules.
Yeah.
They make the priorities. They decide how we want to do, and then it'll fall into our hands to help them carry out.
Well,
whatever.
First we should specify that lovely Dena is leaving us. So her top priority is just enjoying retirement.
Fleeing.
Gone at the end of the year. But yeah, enjoy. It's been a trip.
Well, and the MEC just held one of their regular meetings.
Yes.
And the things that I heard come out of that meeting regarding communications is standing up, continuing gaining audience for the podcast.
That's right. We're not going anywhere. The Pied Monsters are here to stay.
Exactly. Also increasing our social media footprint and getting that up and running.
I'll put that out as a quick plug to any pilots who are listening. If you are interested or a social media expert and you would like to get more involved with your Piedmont pilot group, we would love to have you. We're in the market for a social media guru, if anyone out there is listening.
Absolutely. And you'll get to work with us.
And you'll get to work with us. As the podcast host and as a person who's involved, I get to be invited to events like the board of directors meeting, which I wouldn't have otherwise been invited to. And it's been an amazing, amazing insight into the broader airline industry, to talking with people from other airlines, to seeing, again, to the point of the work that ALPA does for our pilots. And it is extensive. And if you're not involved, you would never see it. You would never know. It's not just airline industry fairies making things happen and getting contracts and LOAs done and making meetings happen. It's a lot of people and a lot of line pilots who really volunteer a lot of time, in addition to our paid support staff. But it's a lot of people working very hard to make a lot of things happen, and getting to see all of that firsthand has been an awesome experience. So if anyone's interested in volunteering your Piedmont MEC, we are always in the market. Please check the ALPA app under committees and volunteer forms.
I think one other misconception, now that you bring that up, is that to volunteer for a committee, you have to have all this experience.
No,
you don't necessarily need that because we will train you.
That's right.
And that is one thing for 2025 that they talked about is really beefing up their training on the different committees. And they were really trying to talking about Cooper and the mentoring program. So those were big goals for the MEC for 2025.
Excellent. Well, ladies, once again, I very much appreciate it. Nina, Dena, and Vicki, our ALPA support staff, we're so grateful to have you and look forward to continuing to work with you. And I hope our Piedmont pilots know how much you do for our group. I hope that they have the opportunity to work with you in only positive capacities. I hope that it's not Dena representing anyone in a grievance or some
termination
situation. That's not what we're looking to accomplish. So if everyone could stay out of trouble, that would be great too. Thanks. Once again, thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here in Chicago with us this week. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.